Ben, thanks so much for joining. Despite the fact you're a Packer fan, happy to have you here today. And look, this is a really interesting one for me because we both sit in a sales role out on the road talking to customers. And so really interested to get your perspective on what is the winning sauce for BCD. Maybe no trade secrets involved, but if you were pitching a customer or prospect, what are kind of the three things that you'd want them to walk away thinking about BCD?
Yeah, look, Andy, and first and foremost, Packers always go back, go. But look, that's a great question. And at the end of the day, I think from a BCD perspective, we want to be authentic and we want to be really unapologetically ourselves, right? Is the industry's been such, in such turmoil, there's been such disruption, there's a lot of innovation going on in the industry, there's a lot of buzzwords and anecdotes and algorithms that people are using to really kind of drive our industry forward collectively. And I think from ourselves, we really want to be, again, that unapologetic around who we are. And we are a people-first business. We are open by design from BCD. We want to be, collaborating across partners, across technologies and ecosystems to really drive better outcomes and better value for our key mutual customers.
Right.
And I think that's really key from our standpoint, that we want to continue to be a trusted partner, a thought leader in the industry, and really how we continue to kind of evolve the space together. Because again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of, disruption. There's a lot of, disruption for disruption's sake.
Yeah.
And that's not the reality that we want to live in or our customers want to live in. They want to have clear, concise, actionable outcomes and really how we mutually, between BCD and Sabre, be able to kind of drive that value back for them at the end of the day. And I think, you guys are that ecosystem that powers that content at travelers' fingertips. And we love that fact that we're able to distribute that at any time to our customers and give them the confidence that, hey, you don't need to jump on ABC website to find content. We have partners, we have, that interconnected ecosystem that provides that excellent content at fingertips as well.
Excellent. You touched on open by design and you kind of had some themes in there about customer centricity.
Yeah.
What's maybe a recent example where that was a key differentiator for you in winning a piece of business?
Yeah, look, I'm actually going to turn it on its head, Andy, and I'm going to talk about a piece of business we were actually unsuccessful for.
Okay.
And it was a long, arduous process. So it was about 8 months in, a lot of back and forth, a lot of relationship building, and a lot of really purposeful conversations with that customer. Unfortunately for us, we were beaten out by price. But at the end of the day, the key procurement team came back to our BCD team and said just how much they appreciated the authenticity of what we were talking about, the transparency from our side and being a trusted partner. And that's a really great live example for me that I use of going, yeah, look, BCD is not out there to be the number one global TMC. We want to be the best TMC to all of our partners. And sometimes that works in our favor and we want to be able to have a mutually commercial outcome that works on both sides of our partners. But look, we're not going to be everything for everybody. We are who we are. We want to be continuing to be that trusted thought leader. And at the end of the day, when partnerships aren't formed, as in that example, we can at least move forward with business maturity of understanding that, hey, we'll be on standby when you need us, and inevitably you will. You can come back to the right side of the equation there. Yeah. So that's a great example of how we lost, unfortunately, but won at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, and also you learn from those examples and situations. That was a really good example of, and even as you were talking about maybe the key differentiators, this notion of, we've got your back, and how you do that and how you show up for customers each and every day. So you're on the side of going and winning the business. We just talked to Tanya about how she supports the business.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit of the interaction, the handoff between sales, delivery, the team that implements and ultimately provides a service to the customer.
Yeah, look, and that value chain across that life cycle is so critical, Andy, right? Like I usually go into customers and then I'm out. As soon as we win. No, of course not. I'm there until the end of the journey. And sometimes even after contract renewals, I'll still be engaged with some of our customers and that critical component of that trusted advisor and that. And one of the philosophies we really work very well here at BCD is really listening to the voice of our customers, as well as implementing really kind of executive sponsorship structures in place that gives our customers confidence that throughout a sales process, implementation, operations, delivery, and execution, we're there a part of the journey with with them. And hey, we're not going to get everything right, nor does anybody. Nobody's perfect in the world here. But at the end of the day, we want to be that partnership and invest into success and that mutual success around how we kind of transform those programs together. And so look, I think there's a lot of internal collaboration, especially for my region in Asia Pacific. One of the things and concepts we work very heavily on is what we call a virtual strategy team, where we bring together our collective internal stakeholders and look at different parts of our business, how we can maximize efficiency, how we can ensure that communication's across the board. And it's always, my philosophy is it's impossible to argue with logic sometimes, right? Yeah. So if it's on a piece of paper and we're talking about it, no one can come back and say, hey, I didn't know about this, and how are we going to create this solution? So that's really critical about that communication across that ecosystem and making sure that everybody is aligned on that same vision and same goal of how we go about executing programs as well.
Yep. Look, as one of the most admired TMCs, and by virtue of all the awards that you've won in that space, I think the authenticity point, kind of shines through in that example. But I would say in the last few years, and maybe the last 5-6 years in particular, the technology theme is probably increasingly important, and suspect that you're seeing that and hearing that from customers. What are some of the differentiators in that respect on the technology front that you hear from customers and the approach that BCD is taking and what matters to them?
Yeah, look, and I think, again, that evolution of our ecosystem and the industry itself is that it is really going around table stakes around owning your own tech. Right. And I think that control and that empowerment and investment around a constant feedback loop from our important customers, tell us what you need, tell us what we're lacking, tell us areas that we need to invest in as an organization to excel and to really future-proof your program. And I think that's been a critical component. And I know you spoke with Yanis earlier today as well. And he's so informed around making sure that ecosystem of communication across the entire space of our travel programs from end to end. So hearing the travelers, hearing the road warriors out on the road, what are they experiencing? What do they miss from their program that they need? Hearing from procurement and finance and duty of care and people and culture and all those elements within inside that make a program very successful. We want to hear at every stage of that to see how we can kind of continually have that improvement process, and implementing that within inside our deployment cycles of new technology and new updates and those type of things. It's all about how we continue to power the value back to the customer. Yeah. And again, BCD is not about being out there being flashy of deploying new technology just because it's an amazing piece. No, we want to listen to our customers and just do a systematic rollout to make sure that it is the best value that we can provide for our customers and how we drive that throughout their programs as well.
Yeah, excellent. Well, look, we're here to talk about customer success, and I'm hearing your lens of what that means for your clients. Yeah. It's equally important for me to hear how we make you successful. Absolutely. What would be one thing that you'd want to see more of from Sabre?
Look, I think, and again, I think it's a testament to our long tenured partnership, Andy. I think you and the team do such a fantastic job of collaboration and transparency and that trust and integrity. And I think it's mutually shared on both sides. So I don't think there's any silver bullet that you can do that pulls out of the hat that's going to give us any more tools in the toolbox. I think we just need to continue forging that path together and creating that consistency in market. And our messages are, you spoke about this morning, are so well aligned between BCD and Sabre, and we have so much mutual collaboration of our cultures and ethos around how we operate as an organization. But look, I think from that standpoint, I think we just need to continue doing that in market. We are respective market leaders in our space, us being TMCs, you being the ecosystem for travel commerce and distribution. And I think with those two, it's a secret sauce of perfect blend of technology innovation as well as people-centric and empowering the value for the customers at the end of the day. Yeah. So nothing more from my standpoint around what we need to do. We just need to keep on doing the same thing that we've been doing.
Ben, as you think about the ecosystems constantly evolving, right? And so what are the things where you see the pace of change increasing in terms of maybe that's client expectations, or maybe it is in the technology sphere, I'm not sure, but what are some of those areas that you foresee and how you're responding to those?
Yeah, look, and I think if I take a lens from a content standpoint, Andy, right? Again, the new distribution capability rollout has been so probably progressive in the last few years, right? Is we obviously had a little bit of stagnation there there when it talks about the development of NDC during COVID times, and I think we were more in a protection mode on the entire industry. But I think we've really seen the acceleration of NDC and the benefits at the end of the day to the end traveler. I think is going to be continuing to evolve. Is we've gotten now to a point where we can distribute, we can book, we can service end to end at scale, and I think that's been incredibly important because that's been the piece that's been missing from the entire life cycle from end to end for our customer base. But now we're at that point where we can service. So now it's about how do we differentiate the content?
Yeah.
How do we give travelers the benefits to buy a status credit at point of sale? How do we give them additional points or lounge access or all those ancillary benefits in the travel journey is only going to keep on maximizing the value for the traveler at the end of the day. Yeah. And I think that's going to continue to see complete benefits moving forward. One of the themes that we're exploring as an organization over the next few days is really looking at how travel road warriors act in their environment. Like, what do they need? How do we empower them with tech at the point of sale to really again make their journey seamless, and how do we maximize their ability to deliver to their organizations at the end of the day? And I think new distribution capability and the continued evolution and rollout of NDC is going to be so incredibly powerful for the end traveler. And I think we've only just touched the surface. Now that we've got the confidence that we can service bookings at scale and obviously distribute those at scale, that's a great starting point. But now it's about how do we evolve that life cycle? How do we add that extra layer of value at the end of the day to our customer base to, really create a differentiated service and delivery, which again, I know Sabre is incredibly advanced in those discussions as likewise as BCD from our standpoint as well.
Well, BCD is our global TMC for Sabre. I'm happy to be Road Warrior 1 on that journey.
Thank you for that shout out, Andy.
Maybe one last question to end it. So, okay, that's great. You've seen that evolve in the last several years. So now pull out the crystal ball. This is Ben's prognostication on what's to come. So in the next 2 to 3 years, where do we end up? And where do is it, maybe about the customer journey? Let's start there. How do you see the customer journey potentially changing and possibly the implications and what it means for BCD?
Yeah, look, it's quite funny. One of the things that I've been very heavily involved with the GBTA Association, so the Global Business Travel Association, one of the things and the concepts we've explored is a big idea, where we explored different concepts around challenging the status quo of the industry and looking at a pragmatic standpoint as well as a futuristic standpoint. Across those conversations that we've had is, unfortunately, I had to debate around the pragmatism, so the realities of the evolution of the AI and the agentic conversational tools that are out there and how that's progressing in the industry. My crystal ball and my 2 to 3 year take is form-based tools are going to be obsolete. I'm really bullish on the fact that there is enough technology and the algorithms understand personalization and customizations at the point of sale. And as long as we give that quality data in, that algorithm's going to be able to learn at it's such an accelerated pace to how we produce offers and how we personalize those content to the end traveler. So, I really see that evolution is going to happen quicker than a lot of people expect. And it's always a little bit of a hindsight where you look back, especially in my marketplace of Asia Pacific, there are some of my markets that don't even utilize online booking tools.
Right.
There are very traditional, calling people, feeling that sense of security of being able to talk to someone on the other side of the phone or email. And I think that evolution is going to happen quicker than what we anticipate. I think we've got to control the destiny because there's also a lot of, I wouldn't say risks, but areas that we need to monitor with inside AI to ensure that we're protecting data quality. There's even a sustainability angle to understand how much actual water it takes to cool some of these AI algorithm systems in the back of at the back end to ensure that we are, maximizing our sustainability and CO2 emissions standpoint. So look, it's such an exciting space. I love the fact that we're all sitting in the industry now to see it continue to evolve and see that kind of evolution around, programs and procurement and finance of how everyone's going to come together around that customer journey and see it transform in front of our eyes. And like I said, my hot take, 2 years, no form-based tools.
Wow, that's a bold prediction. I love it. We're in the camp of agentic commerce is here, and we're excited about that and enabling our customers with a lot of the technology we bring to bear. I think the other thing that is true about that is increased diversity of customer booking experiences, because as you said, there's things that are different, region to region, market to market, maybe generationally. And I think this is where BCD and kind of the open by design concept really plays in to say, regardless of how you want to book, we're there for you, and we've got the right set of technology and tools to enable it.
Absolutely.
So congratulations on that. We'll look forward to coming back in 2 years' time and seeing if you're right.
I don't know if I want to quote that, but anyway, it's on film now.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, Ben. Enjoyed the chat.
Thanks,
All right,
Andy.
you bet.